myself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. And if you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. If you're tossing and turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. Oh, we find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. You'll always have my shoulder when you cry. I'll never let go, never say goodbye. You know you can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, ooh, you can count on me 'cause I can count on you.
You can't hear us? There. They hid the microphones from us, is what you were trying to say.
And mine doesn't work. That's cool. They're just playing games with us. Good morning. Welcome. How you guys doing? So glad you guys made it out here for our 10:30 service, our new service time. You'll have to heckle your friends when they come in 45 minutes late to service because they didn't get the memo. Or hopefully they're not at the high school. We've got a couple signs over there too. So glad you guys could join us for the holiday weekend here. We are, my name's Tyler. I'm the production director here at the Clarkston campus.
My name is Sydney. I am the student ministries intern here as well.
Yes, we're so glad you guys are here. We're kicking off a new series this week. We're going to be talking about community. We're going to be talking about, the title of the series is Circles. We're going to be talking about what it means to have close friends in our lives. As I stand over here listening to this song, I was just thinking Julio and his wife Laura and Jordan and her husband Curtis are 4 of those people in my life that I can call in the middle of the night, that I can count on. And they have been tremendous friends to me, and I hope that I get to be that friend to them as well. And so over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about what those relationships look like in our life and how we can fully engage in those and enjoy them. And commitment and community are a huge deal around Kensington here, and so we want to share with you a few ways you can get connected to our community here.
Absolutely. So over the next couple of weeks, we have a few opportunities where you guys can kind of join our community, get plugged in. The first one is next weekend. We are having a fall picnic. We're very excited about this. It's at 11:30, so after our second service, and it's just an opportunity for you guys to build your community. We will have food, so if you can bring a cash donation for the food, and then bring a chair or a blanket or anything like that, just to kind of hang out and sit around with us. And then we also have our leadership gathering on September 15th. This is just a really great opportunity for you to join over 1,000 leaders, mostly including volunteers, just to hear about what Kensington's doing, the movement we're kind of in right now, and so we would love to see you there as well.
Yeah, and we've got a couple of other great opportunities, one specifically for men. Every fall, we have a men's retreat called Man Up. If you guys have ever met Julio Fonseca, I'm sure you've heard about it. If you haven't, he would love to tell you about it. October 6th through 8th are the dates this year. Registration is open now. It fills up quick. So if you're at all interested in going, you want to hop on our website or on the app and get registered. It's a great time. I've been up a couple times. It's just an opportunity to step away from work and to step away from your family and the routine and to just have some time with some guys to hang out, to play some games, to kind of step back from everything and take a look at what it means to be a man of God in your house. And we've got some great speakers. We've got great music planned. It's an awesome experience. If you've never been, I would highly encourage you to sign up. And if you've already been, I'm sure I don't need to tell you anymore. You just want to get signed up quickly. And then one more thing, a little closer to home, if you're looking to get connected. If you enjoy the music we have here every week, we have got some amazing musicians who come up here on stage every week to lead us in worship and to share different music moments with us. Well, we've got opportunities for more. We've got slots in our band that we'd like to fill. If you play an instrument or you sing and that's something you're interested in, we would love to have you share your gifts and talents on stage here. So Hayden Pryka, our worship director, her husband, will be standing by the soundboard after service, and he would love to talk to you about signing up for an audition. We're going to have them here on September 17th, right after the second service. It's short, it's painless, it's fun. We just want to figure out what the best spot for you is. So if you are interested in music and that means something to you, we would love to have you sign up for an audition. So stop by the sound booth right after service. Now, if everyone could please stand up, tell the person next to you whether you spent your day yesterday rooting for the Wolverines beating the Gators or the Spartans beating
The Bowling Green Falcons.
whoever Bowling Green's mascot is. I know you want to get back at me.
Check. Hello, how are we doing today? Good. Well, before you guys get settled in, I want to invite you guys to stand back up. We're going to do an interactive activity. So like Tyler said, we are starting the new series, Circles. And man, we're super excited about this and just being able to learn about community. And one of the greatest things that we get to do together is sing. So we want to invite you guys to sing these really, really well-known songs. So hopefully you guys know them. But the key is, you guys need to sing. So there's going to be really famous parts that you'll know. Andrew, let's sing something. Sing something for the ladies. And men, you better be singing to your women.
You are my fire, the one desire, believe.
Come on, I know you know.
When I say that I want it that way, tell me why it ain't nothing but a heartbreak. Tell me why it ain't nothing but a mistake. Tell me why I never wanna hear you say, 'cause I want
There you
it
go.
that
One more time.
'cause I want it that way.
Good job, guys. Let's do another one. We'll do an older one. A lot of people know this one though.
Where it began can't begin to know it, but then I know it's growing strong. Was in the spring, and spring became the summer. Who'd have believed you'd come along? Come on now. Hands, touching hands, reaching out, touching me, touching you. Here we go. Times never seem so good, so good, so good, so good.
Now,
I think they know the words better than you do.
they probably do know the words better than me. Good job, guys. Let's, we'll do one more. Do you guys like Disney? Yes. Awesome.
For these guys
Jordan,
right here.
give us something Disney.
Yeah.
Don't let them in, don't let them see. Be the good girl you always have to be. Conceal, don't feel, don't let them know. You guys know this, right? Well, now they know. Let it go, let it go. Can't hold it back anymore. Let it go, let it go. Turn away and slam the door. I don't care what they're going to say. Let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered me anyway. Thank you, Jeremiah.
Hey, it's the least I can do, man. I know what you guys are thinking. Jordan's struggling. Jeremiah, get up there. Oh, my gosh, man. You guys going to see. You guys, give yourself a big hand again, dude. You guys sound unbelievable. Hey, we are talking about circles today. We're talking about community today. And really, around this place, we feel that we're better together. That doing things alone, I mean, they're terrible. Imagine if you're just up here singing by yourself and there's no audience, right? And really what makes a great book, the author thinks maybe it's writing or whatever, but really is the readers. It's when we come together around something. So, but at the heart of every great community, it starts a friendship somewhere, usually a duo, two people that come together. And so just to kind of remind us of that, every time you see this guy, Batman, who does he usually have along with him? Oh, that was weak. You guys, you were supposed to know that was Robin for sure. Okay, let's try another one. Here we go. Bert can't leave his best friend at home. There we go. Give me another one. Let's see. Starsky, baby, and his good sidekick and law enforcement, Hutch. There you go. Yes, you got him. Who else do we got? Joey from Friends and his good buddy in the twin reclining chairs. So you're telling me you're not a big fan of Friends? Come on, man. Maria and I have watched that like those seasons over and over. Okay, give me another one. This is an all-time famous. Lloyd Christmas and his good buddy who? Harry. There we go. Hey, it's funny though, right? Because it's usually in the circle of community that you find friendship. And in friendship, a lot of great things happen. I remember playing sports growing up. My friend Scott and I, we were on junior varsity and we got promoted to varsity and we thought we were just awesome, man. And so when we got promoted, we couldn't believe it. We're like, man, I wonder if we're going to start. I wonder if we're going to get in the circle. And that is the circle of the huddle, right? Where everything gets talked about. And then you make the play and you're going to either go on the field or go on the court versus being on the bench. And so Scott and I, sure enough, we're able to start. I'm like, this is awesome, man. We're like in the game and we're coming out of like almost, what I thought was going to be the end of the game. And so they would always pass the ball into me and I would get it and I'd throw it to our point guard or somebody else. And they asked me never to dribble because I'd always dribble it off my knees. I was big. I've told you guys before, but I was like this tall. My head was this big, but I was stick skinny in high school. And so I looked like a Tootsie Pop is what my buddies told me. Good friends affirming me, And so I got the ball, and my buddy was double teamed, and I thought, what do I do? I don't know what to do. And so I looked up, and I saw about 3 seconds on the clock, and I didn't know what to do, and I just panicked, and I was at half court, and I'm like, here we go. And I'm like, I threw the ball, and it felt like one of those moments in a movie, right? And the ball's just churning over in the air, and it's making its way what looks to be the rim. And some of my friends were on the bench. They begin to stand up. My buddies are looking around me, and the coach is doing one of these numbers. And we're all watching, and sure enough, it goes near the rim, but it goes above the rim and above the backboard and literally over the backboard through the two posts that were holding the backboard together. And my friends who loved me stood up and said, "It's good! Field goal, man." And I looked at the clock, and my coach is like, "Roy, what are you doing?" And I looked over, and there were 2 minutes and 3 seconds left on the clock. And so we huddled back up in our circle together, and we're there, and nobody's saying anything. They're like, "The coach is going to kill Jeremiah. This is his first and only debut in varsity basketball." And he goes, "Oh, I don't even know what to say to you right now. I'm so mad." And my friend Scott, though, he's a good friend of mine, looked over, and he's like, "That was the worst shot I've ever seen." He's like, "But I love you, dude." And like he had my back. And whether it was on the basketball court in high school or even on his bedroom floor when I was going through a crisis when I was 22 and brokenhearted and broke up with a girl that I thought was the girl of my dreams, and things split and didn't work out, and I was devastated and didn't want to tell anybody, but he was there with me. And those are the kind of friends that we desire for all of us to have, that each one of us want in our heart, aren't they? They're those kind of friends. They really are. And in fact, Scripture, it's painted all throughout the Bible. It shows that God designed from the very beginning of time us to have friendships, to have community that was marked with these kind of friendships. In fact, sometimes I call them the one another's. You look through Scripture and it says to bear one another's burdens, be there for one another in tough time, to love one another, to do the big one, forgive one another, to rejoice with one another. I was just doing a wedding a couple nights ago, and people were celebrating. They were excited. Why? About people coming together, people getting married, family and friends being near each other. And you're supposed to mourn together with one another when somebody hurts or they've had loss. You give to one another when somebody's in need. You do this stuff together because why? We're better together. That's just the reality about what makes a great community. And the opposite is not just painfully uncomfortable if you don't have friends or don't have community. It can be devastating in a lot of ways. In fact, I want to read an excerpt from a book my wife has been reading. She's like a speed reader and making it through this thing, and I'm trying to catch up, but it's called Dream Big, Think Small by Jeff Manion, and it's really amazing. And in the book, he spends a few chapters talking about community, and he references Solomon, who we talked about a few months ago, but Solomon's like the wisest man to have ever lived, the wisest person to have ever walked the face of the planet. So when he spoke or he wrote things down, people would listen because they would have great meaning to their life. And Solomon says he warned of the danger of traveling alone. He pointed out the advantage of banding together, like a band. You ever watch Band of Brothers, by the way? I like banding together for the journey. And in there he quotes Ecclesiastes. He says this: "If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls, as has no one to help them up," that person without community. "Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves." And it's really interesting because he goes on to give an example in this book, the story about this. The name may not be familiar, but the movie will be. Aaron Ralston. Have you ever heard of him? I got a picture of him up here. Aaron Ralston, he went on a big hike, in fact, in the Utah Canyonlands. And they made a movie about him called 127 Hours. And 127 Hours depicting the 5 days that he was stuck. He was pinned. His arm, in fact, that is no longer there, was pinned by a big 800-pound, almost 800-pound boulder that caught him in. And for 5 days, he was without food and water and didn't know what to do and distressed. And the biggest thing that the author of this book took away from his story, something that Aaron had quoted, is that he said, "You're not going to believe it, when I took off and I left, guess who he informed that he was going hiking in the Utah Canyonlands? Nobody. He didn't tell a soul. He didn't tell his friends. He didn't tell his neighbors. Didn't tell coworkers. Didn't tell mom. Didn't tell anybody." And his number one piece of advice, because the reason he has no arm, and many of you know, maybe that don't know, he had to amputate his own arm to get out of that situation, or he was going to what? Die. And what he'll say if you go on a hike, he'll tell you this every time, hands down: don't hike alone. He echoes the words in a very painful way that Solomon shared some thousands of years ago. And today we're going to press into this whole idea, in fact, for the next few weekends, on community. We talk about it because community sounds great from a distance. Yeah, I want to be part of community, but you don't realize you need to be part of community. You can't thrive and survive and live and experience life the way that God's invited you to live life without others around us. It's just how it works. In fact, it's our number 3 value around this place. We say that in Christ we find our identity. Under Scripture we get our authority, or like our true north. How do we know up from down or the right decisions to make in this world? But the third one, we say the best way to do or experience any of these is as a family, or in other words, in community. And we look today, as we kick off this series about circles or community and talk about friendships, we're like, who could we look to that was really a master of community? He was a relational genius, right? Like there was nobody better than this person. And we look to Jesus. Because from the beginning of time, God's heartbeat was to have community. Have you ever thought about even the concept of the Trinity? There's God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and there was the 3 in 1, right? And they had each other. There was, the divine nature had community together. This is the, not just heartbeat of God, but the very essence, the DNA, if you would, of who God is. And so we look, when Jesus comes to earth, he launches and begins and starts the framework of great community. And today we want to look at aspects of community, because see, the things that Jesus said, his words were powerful. He'd say things like, love your enemy, do good to those that persecute you. He'd make radical statements that would really create upheaval in the community of that time. Or his works, he would give sight to the blind. He could calm the sea with his voice. He was miraculous. He really was. People still talk about him today, right? I mean, it's this phenomenal individual, but not just his words and not just the works that Jesus did, but the ways that Jesus lived were what? So profound. They were so profound because the ways he lived are not often the ways that we live. The way that he loved other people were not often the way that we love other people. And so I want to take you to a guy named John. He was one of his disciples. There's the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but John's pretty incredible. I mean, if there would have been a modern day hippie, it would have been him. He was a very emotional guy. He was a guy that wanted to capture the very heart and essence of what Jesus was about. And so most of his gospel is about Jesus interacting with people. And I want to take you to one of the last stories in John 21. It's the last chapter in the book. And in fact, it's really the last things John was going to really share and say about Jesus, this guy that changed the world forever. And he doesn't really talk about his words so much and doesn't share too much with his works, but he does talk a whole lot about the ways that Jesus built community. And so we're going to read this story together and then extrapolate, take out a little bit of these 4 ways that we see in there that Jesus did community. So I'm just going to read along and let you kind of enjoy the story. So afterward, so this is like just another kind of moment or excerpt from Jesus' life, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way, John says. Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. It says, I'm going out to fish. That's what Peter says, told them. And they said, we'll go out with you. And so they went out and got into the boat. But that night they caught nothing. And then the story goes on. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, friends. I love the verbiage that he uses. Haven't you any fish? No, they answered. He said, well, throw your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, this is John, says, it is the Lord. As soon as Simon Peter heard him say, it is the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. The other disciples followed in the boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from the shore, about 100 yards away. When they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals. There were some fish on it and some bread. And watch. Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish you have just caught. So Simon Peter climbed back into the boat and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153. But even with so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. None of the disciples dared ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. And inside of this story, John captures what we're about to talk about. 4 unique and powerful ways that Jesus modeled community. You see, these were going to be some of the last moments of his ministry on earth, period. And so of all the things that he could have said and all the things that he could have done, what does he do? He goes and he finds his people and he does life with them. And I want to take you just to my first point. There's 4 points that we're going to share today, 4 thoughts, okay? The first one is this, is that he went to them around him. Jesus went to them around him. Look in verse 1 where it came back in, the way that he went to those around him. Afterward, Jesus appeared to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. Say, well, what's so important about that? See, the very nature of God was that he left heaven and he came to earth for who? You and I, right? This is it. And so Jesus was this way. Jesus was always going after people. He was always pursuing people. If you follow his life and you kind of walk through the Gospels and Scripture, you see he was going from this town, and then he'd go to that town and meet some people, and then he'd go to that town and meet some, and he was like a traveling maniac. He was always traveling and preaching and going and meeting with people all the time. It was his nature. It was his mission. In fact, I don't think you'd ever meet a guy more intentional than Jesus. And so he goes there to find his disciples. Why? Because they were really, let me tell you, just to have context in the story, they were far from where they were supposed to be. Remember, these 12 disciples were the 12 that would change the world. I mean, there are churches built to name. There are cathedrals named after them. I mean, human history shows evidence, the fact that these men changed the world in a radical way. And you'd think after Jesus' death and resurrection, he's back again, they would be out doing the same thing, preaching and going and moving and talking and connecting and networking and all this kind of stuff. But they weren't. They were far away from that. But Jesus goes to where they are, far away. He went to them. See, it's one of our values around here. We say in this place, we're for the one. Say, what do you mean? The one that's been marginalized, the one that's been discredited, the one that's been forgotten about, right? Remember the one that, here's our group, the one that's over there. See, because community, Jesus knew this, wasn't complete unless everyone was together. In fact, it's part of our mission statement to see not someone or some people or him and her and them, but to see everyone, every person, every old person, every young person, every couple, every young adult, right? Every teenager, every student, every K kid, every person we've never even met or thought about. This is in the heart of God. It's why we see these great things in Scripture and narrative, that he went after the one. When there was 99 sheep the shepherd had and the one was gone, what happened? What did the shepherd do? He went after it. There's another story about a lady who had 10 coins, but she could only find 9 and lost 1. And she searched all day, and she rejoices when she found the one. And then there's this great story, really the paramount moment in these parables that are being told about a prodigal, a son that was lost. And the father had his homestead. He had another son. He probably had other family members, everyone he needed. But he was distressed and at loss and amiss because he needed the one, his other son. He needed that to be complete. Jesus feels the same way. By the way, this is really the heart of God, just so you know. When Jesus goes after people, it was to model in community that we are charged. We're required to, for us that know Christ, to love people, to go after people, to go find people, to seek those that have been marginalized and left behind. It is. See, religion will say this. Religion tells us it's your job to get your life together. It's your job to run after God. See, if the story was all about religion, Jesus would have been over here like this. Yeah, when they get their act together, they'll come back. When they figure it out, they'll come to me. But it wasn't that. Because religion says run after God. But a relationship with Jesus says the opposite. It says God, in fact, is running after you. You're being pursued because you're loved and cared about. This is what's so beautiful. My friend Ben was in the service earlier, Ben Stevenson, and he's been a good friend of mine for a long time, and we've always pursued one another, but there's a season in our life where I didn't. His mom, and we all think our moms are the greatest, and they are, right? I don't want to get tomatoes thrown at me or something, but his mom was so sweet. See, she had MS, and she had one of the most difficult times and journeys the past couple years of her life, and she passed away. And every time I'd see Ben's mom, she'd be smiling. Every time you ran into her, it didn't matter who you were, when you were in a room with her, you felt loved and cared about. That's just who she was. When Ben lost her and I was talking to him and I was trying to make my way to the funeral, I see my wife, because I should have gone to the funeral. And I had too many things other going on, and I looked now and I'm so ashamed. When I saw him the last service, I should have quit everything and went after him, because it really is the heart of God and community. And he calls me all the time when we go to Leo's Coney. I go to Leo's all the time. You'll probably hear me say that. And he pursues me, and I just told him, I called him, I said, can I share that? Because you've modeled the heart of Jesus in a way that I dropped the ball on. See, great community starts with this. We go after one another. We don't leave people to be left to themselves. We pursue people to remind them that you're important. And by the way, every one of you in here are so important to God. You've never met a person, Mark said it last week, that didn't matter to God. You've never looked in the eyes of a young girl or a young man or an older person or a couple that didn't matter deeply to Jesus. See, the second ingredient that Jesus leaves in these blueprints, this DNA, if you would, of great community, is you go after people. You go for the one. The next one is you're not afraid to step in the mess. The way that he stepped into the mess of people's lives was unbelievable. In fact, it wasn't just unbelievable, it was unheard of in that culture, in that time, and it's unbelievable today too. We walk into places like everything's okay. I've done it. You've probably done it. You've walked in here and people see you and like, hey, how's it going? And you're like, good. How you doing? You're like, good. You know, you're throwing all these things out and everything's high fives and great. But if we could rewind and look in your car, you might have just had the worst argument of your life, right? Or you wanted to squish your kids. Just a couple days ago, I was hanging out and I took my little boys to the gym and I got 3 of them. And they got in like this little fight and I tried to separate the 2 and the little one got knocked down. He was crying and I'm like, pull it together. And moms and dads, have you ever done this where you're talking to him and you're not saying anything, but you're talking right through your teeth, you know, and you're trying to get this body language across. And it was just like chaotic, man. The people at the counter were like, is everything okay? You know, and I'm like trying to wrangle them in. And then a lady walks up and goes, Jeremiah, is that you? And I was kind of bent down like this and I want to be like, oh, dear God. I'm like, I wanted to turn around and be like, no, this is Todd, man. I don't know who Jeremiah is, but good to meet you, you know. I'm like, yes. And she knew Marie and I from way back. And our lives are messy. Do me a favor. Just get honest. Has your life ever been messy, right? All of us, right? You either just came out of a mess, you're right, square dab in the middle of a mess, or got news for you, you're about to go into what? A mess. It's just the nature of this world. Jesus said it. You'll have trouble in this world, but take heart because I'm with you. But we have messes. And here's the thing. With a mess, we can do a couple things in a community. We can look at those that are in a mess and go, did you hear about her? Do you know what she's, not you, by the way, but did you know what's going on, right? Just kidding. Or we can ignore it. We talked about that for a past series, being biased. We can put blinders on and be in our bubble of our bias and ignore tragedy going wrong, ignore hardship. We can ignore things. That's an option. You can pick that if you want. Or Jesus did. We can step right into the mess of what's going on. See, I think one of the greatest things that Marie and I ever experienced being part of Kensington, and really, honestly, I just want to brag on him and her, being part of Mark and Callie's life. See, I love Mark because he took a chance on me. He really did. You may not know this, and maybe you do from watching me, but I don't have it all figured out. Not by a long shot. I'm learning and growing and being mentored every day. I make mistakes all the time. I'm telling you, you're being led in a lot of ways by a lousy leader sometimes with me when I'm up here. I got to be honest, and I mean that. And Marie and I came from a pretty busy place, a busy organization where we went a lot every almost evening and weekends and nonstop. And for 7 years, and in doing so, it took a toll on our marriage. It just did. It left us frazzled and short with each other, and we said things that were hurtful to each other and did things that were wronged against each other, and it put us in a hard spot. And when Mark and Callie sat with us, and if you've ever been to their house, their place, or you got to go one time. They have this beautiful farm out in Clarkston, and they love having people there. And they've got this amazing farm table, right? Ladies, I know you love those classic-looking farm tables, and it was such a beautiful thing. And we sat there, and we were getting ready to have a small group, and people were getting ready to come in the doors, and Marie and I just sat down, and we got news for you. We're struggling, and we couldn't hold it in. And I remember sitting there, and we just talked to him, and we looked, and I was so ashamed because I wanted to be this dynamic leader. I wanted to say, I've got it all under control, Mark. Don't worry, buddy. You can take a vacation, my man. I'm good, right? And it was the opposite. I said, I'm really struggling. We've hurt each other a lot. I've hurt my wife. We've said things. We've done things. And I know you're like, you expect more out of me. I'm sorry I'm letting you down. But we had a mess. And I remember looking over at Mark, and he was listening. And I looked over to Callie. I didn't want to look at her eyes because I was ashamed. I remember looking over, and I expected to see condemnation from her eyes. And I saw the opposite. I saw salvation and restoration. I saw compassion. And I think I witnessed in community what Jesus was trying to share. I witnessed somebody that was willing to step in the mess, that wasn't afraid of it at all. And she reminded me in that moment what Jesus came to do. She stepped into a planet, into human earth, into our lives, into our communities, and said, hey, I didn't come to condemn you. Nobody needs any more condemnation in this place, do we? Man, there's enough condemnation in the world. There's enough problems. There's enough hurt. There's enough pain. Jesus came and didn't come to condemn the world, but to save the world. through the way that I'm going to love you and care for you, the way that I'm going to step into your mess. See, Jesus didn't just go after people. He stepped right in the middle of what they were struggling with. In that moment, I was reminded that's the kind of community we want. That's the kind of community I want to be marked by in this place where people say, what's the Clarkston campus like? Well, man, it's got this really cool speaker. No, I'm just kidding, right? No, this place, man, is unbelievable. They have people that go after you. They'll bring you food if you're hurt. They talk to you. They connect with you, and they step in your mess. Even the worst moments of your life, you know, the things that you never tell anybody about, right? They do that. And I thought, this is a mark that Jesus was trying to show us of community. The third thing that I see, though, that he does is the way that he forgave. See, the way that he forgave. See, when he stepped into the mess, he knew that really something great was going to happen. Because Jesus does his greatest work in our mess, right? He sees the best in our mess. He does. In fact, one of our values around here is brokenness. We believe that authenticity is the greatest thing that you can bring to community, is being real, just being honest. And Jesus knew, because he knew what would follow that. When you could get honest and you could get real with a circle of friends, it might be 2 of you, it might be 10 of you. Maybe you join a small group. Maybe you see the small groups that we're going to be advertising in the community we're trying to offer on here, and you get plugged in. It's maybe a person you befriend there, someone you talk to, and you confess this is going on, or marriage is struggling, or maybe you're a young person here right now and a student, you're being bullied at school, or maybe you're a young adult and your parents just went through a divorce and you're distraught, but you haven't let anybody know about it. And the thing to follow that most of us need are some kind of forgiveness. See, the way that Jesus forgave was unbelievable. The way that he forgave was unbelievable. I just want to show you just some scripture right here in John 21. It's in verse 7 that it comes up. In fact, there we go. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, by the way, you know what's so interesting is that John is authoring this gospel, and he denotes himself, not like the humble disciple or just one of the disciples. He's like, no, the disciple whom Jesus loved the most. He's bragging on himself, and he said to Peter, it's the Lord. And as soon as Peter heard him say that, it's the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him and jumped into the water. And you say, what's significant about this? What's happening? I think from a distance, right? They're about 100 yards away from the shoreline, and from a distance, he looks back and he sees, and John goes, oh my gosh, I think I know who that is. It's the Lord. It's Jesus. And something caught John's eye, and John probably began to remember, because he's authoring this gospel, this testament about Jesus. He's thinking, Jesus showed up. He went after us. He's in the middle of our mess. Here we are fishing. We've caught nothing, and we're supposed to be out preaching and doing this mission to change the world, but we're over here, and I can't believe this, right? He sees him, and he tells Peter, it's Jesus. He came for us. We thought he left us, and he came, and he's smiling, he's waving, and he sees that we're not doing what we're supposed to do, and he's in the middle of our mess, and Peter hears this, and he jumps into the water, and he swims into shore, and people are probably thinking, what's Peter doing? Did Peter just jump in the water? Is he just jump in the water and he's swimming at? What is he doing? Where is he going to that guy on the shore? What is going on over here right now? They can't believe it, and they can't get over it, and it's just like this. You can see the story is really taking a crazy turn. Because see, Peter, let me give you a little context. Peter, right, denied Jesus 3 times. Jesus, when he got ready to go to the cross, people are looking, does anyone know this man? Can anyone prove this was the Son of God? Did he perform miracles? Did he heal people? Did he have the power to grant forgiveness to human sin? Could he have done this? And Peter said, I didn't know him. I didn't know him. Second time, somebody said, Peter, did you know him? Did you know him? Because maybe if you knew him, you could be an eyewitness. We could maybe even get him out of it, right? Did you know him? Did you know him? And no, Peter's like, I don't know him. The third time, hey, did you know that guy? Nope. 3 times. And Peter saw this. Would you run to somebody that you did that to? Would you swim 100 yards as fast as you could? I'm telling you, right? I mean, I got some friends in here and stuff. I see my buddy Ryan Coral back over there. But like, if we're friends, but if Ryan did something to me and got me put in prison, got me put on death row, and people said, Ryan, don't you know him? Isn't he a good guy? And Ryan's like, nope, don't know him. The second time, no, I don't know. 3 times. Dude, if I get killed and you put me on death row and I get buried and raised from the dead, don't come swimming to me. Don't come looking for me, right? Because I'll body slam you. I love Ryan. He's like the nicest guy in the world. He would never do that. But Peter does the opposite. Why? Because he knew Jesus was going to forgive him. He knew that Jesus was a friend of sinners. He knew that Jesus came to take away the sins of the world, our wrongdoing. See, in community, forgiveness is one of the greatest gifts, greatest ingredients to bind us together. Our differences that separate us, forgiveness binds them back together in us. It makes this beautiful mosaic of all of the different uniquenesses in our life, the things that we've wronged each other, hurt each other. There are people in here right now that you know you need to go and apologize to. Deeper than that, you need to ask forgiveness from. You just do. There are maybe people that you need to call and forgive. Maybe they'll never grant you forgiveness, and you think you have the upper hand. You do. You think you're holding all the cards, and it's on you, and I'm not going to forgive them. They wronged me. You have no idea how they wronged me, Jeremiah. You have no idea what they said to me or what they did to me or how they left me hanging. You have no idea what they did. I don't, but I know this to be certainly true. You're burdened with it, and a burden that's so heavy that you can barely carry. And forgiveness is this pathway to freedom. And Peter's about to experience it. And he's swimming with he's running toward it. Do you know people that you'd run toward that fast? I can tell you this, if you do, it's probably somebody that would never hold a grudge against you. It's probably somebody that would forgive you at the drop of a hat. It's probably somebody that would say, I love you, I forgive you, don't worry about this, we'll figure this out. Jesus models that in our community. Unforgiveness divides, forgiveness brings it back together. I read a story this week about some people in community. In fact, they're in Arkansas. And I was reading this article my friend Dan Sadler had sent me, and it was about two men, one an older man and one a younger man. And the older man's name was Hisham, and he was Muslim. And he had moved, him and his family, 20 years earlier to the United States of America. And honestly, one of the truest stories of desiring freedom, desiring the American dream and to build, and they did. And they worked several jobs, and they scraped and they saved and they put together, and he opened a used car dealership, and he takes great pride in these vehicles, and he fixes them up. They're not lemons, man. These are like some of the best used vehicles, right, you could ever buy. And if something went wrong, you could bring it to him, and he'd take care of it. And he was just a stand-up person in his community, and he was part of a mosque, and he would worship there. And even though he was different from maybe what our religions would be, like, he was so respected in the community. He was this great man. And there was another young man named Abraham. And Abraham, he didn't grow up so great. And he hung out with probably the kids, students he shouldn't have. And one night, a buddy of his, Craig, said, hey, let's get together. His friend Craig, I'll just say it, was a bigot. He said, let's go terrorize that mosque. Let's go do something offensive. They don't belong here. He shouldn't be here. They don't belong in our country. And he was just angry. And Abraham was young and 19 years old, and he was only 135 pounds and 5'10", and he was intimidated and peer pressured, so he went with them. And so they did this, and they sprayed it, and sure enough, man, they got caught, and his friends bailed on him. And 4 months later, Abraham, he was arraigned, and he was put in jail, and they couldn't afford the $1,500 bail because he came from a very poor family. And Sham and the people, the leaders of the mosque, had gone there, and they said, what's happening with the case? What's going on? And and all of a sudden they said, hey, we got him. We got this young guy named Abraham. We're gonna get him. Bigotry won't stand in our country. And listen to me, it shouldn't at all, okay? But he said, we're gonna get this guy, and we're gonna throw the book at him. And the attorney's telling me this, right? The prosecutor and the sheriff's office. And Hisham said, well, all of a sudden something got in his heart. He said, can you tell me about this young man? He said, tell me about him. He said, he's a troubled kid. You don't want to know about him. He said, now tell me about him. He said, well, he comes from a broken family. He said, tell me more. He said, well, he was abused a lot when he was younger by his dad. He said, where's his father now? He said, his father's died. And he said, well, tell me about his mom. Does he live with his mom? He said, yeah, he lives with his mom, but her name's Rebecca, and she's got leukemia right now. Sham began to sit there, and his heart began to break. He said, this kid is nobody. He said, no, but we're going to get him. He deserves what's coming to him. He deserves punishment. He deserves no forgiveness in this case. And Hisham, his heart begins to break because he remembered a time in his life when somebody offered him forgiveness because of something he had done. And he said, I can't do this. And so he pleaded and he begged, and he said, let me grant this young man forgiveness. Let me do this. And so he ended up paying for an attorney for this young man. He got him, paid for an attorney. He testified on his behalf. He pleaded with the court, and finally this young man got out with about 3 months in jail and was supposed to go 6 years in prison. Let me tell you something. A 5'10", 135-pound kid, 6 years in prison, not going to last, right? And this story, and I thought, this forgiveness. And you talk about radical love and radical forgiveness, what Jesus is trying to teach and bring. I see it in this community, and you're not going to believe it. Sham and Abraham are friends now, and Sham mentors him and is trying to help him. A young man that had an abusive father that's no longer there, and a mother that's dying, and somebody picks him up and restores him. He did what Jesus did. He went after him. He got into the mess, and he forgave him. And can you imagine what our community would look like if we forgave? If we just forgave or granted forgiveness or asked for forgiveness, it would radically transform the community we're in now. The fourth thing that Jesus does that I think is so beautiful is the way that he loved. He loved like no one has ever loved before. I just want to show you this final verse in verse 12. It says, Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." And none of the disciples dared ask him, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. And you say, well, what is it about this scripture? What is it that John's trying to share about this value, the way he loved? How do we see the way that Jesus loved in this moment? They were far from where they were supposed to be, the disciples. They had abandoned their post. They were in a mess. They went back to what they had always done and got what they always were going to get, nothing from this fishing industry. They were hurt, broke, needed forgiveness, and Jesus showed up, and he's sitting with them. Can you imagine? They're around at this moment, they're around this little campfire on the beach, and they're cooking the fish they just caught that Jesus really helped them find by saying, put your nets on this side. And, you know, they do this, and they're looking, and the disciples are probably like, can you believe it? It's him. He came back for us. And they knew it because I'm convinced the way that Jesus, when he saw people, you ever heard that phrase, see people the way that Jesus saw people? He saw them with value. He saw them with love. He saw them with forgiveness. He saw them with restoration. He saw them. I was doing a wedding on Friday night, and I was sitting there, and this young man named Trevor, handsome groom, and his bride was Janae, and she's going to be coming down the aisle. And so, right, the processional comes through, and the bridesmaids come up, and they're already crying. Happens like every wedding, right? And they're coming up, and then the groomsmen come up, and they're like, here you go, dude, taking a dive, you know, and they hit him on the shoulder. You're going down. And I'm like, fellas, quit discouraging this guy. He's about to do one of the most important things in his life, you know. And they're walking this way, and everything comes down. Even these little babies come down. They're being pulled in the wagon, the ring bearers. And it's just like this perfect little wedding, right? And then the bride comes in. And I'm trying to talk to Trevor and say, hey, now, when she comes down, and just reminding him, you go out, her dad's going to give her away. And he's not hearing anything because he's looking at her, right? Right, fellas? Do you remember the first time you looked at your bride and you saw her? I'm looking at my bride right now. I remember the first time I saw her and I thought, oh my goodness. And she's like, oh my goodness, I'm going to slap you right now. But he was looking at her with those eyes, right, ladies? And he could only see her, and he forgot about the couple hundred people that were there. He forgot about me. He forgot about all his goofball buddies teasing him. He forgot about all because I knew in that moment he loves her. He's in love with her beyond anything you could imagine. Jesus looks at you the same way with that kind of love. That's why he goes after you. That's why he's not afraid to step in our mess. And he models this for our community. That's why he's not afraid to grant forgiveness, even if he's been wronged. It's like, it's okay. Because why? I love you. And this is the greatest mark of community he could possibly give was love. And he says, there's no greater love than this, that somebody gives their life for the other. Sacrificial love. I'm telling you, that kind of love will bind a community together and make it so strong and so powerful that nothing can separate it. And it'll only have one choice, but to grow. And this is the kind of community Jesus wanted to create. See, I want to show you a picture of this kind of community with good friends of ours. Some of you know them, probably many of you know them. It's Tim Wisser, right, and Jill. And Jill helps out in our lobby and coordinates things and does an incredible job. And Tim, in fact, is right at the table right now, and he's helping run CG. And they're going to come up here right now. And I want you just to have a picture and to really see that this isn't great words we're talking about. These aren't things Jesus did then. It's stuff Jesus is doing now, okay? And while we do this, I want to ask the ushers, if you would, go ahead and collect the offering at this time. And I want to tell you, in this place, some of you give online, thank you. Some of you may give now. Appreciate it big time. And because it's really fuel for us to be on mission, do what we do. And for some of you, you may be new or maybe you're just checking this place out. Don't feel pressure. You're our guest, and we are so glad you're here. In fact, if you want, and if you feel comfortable to, you can go to a place called Starting Point that's out in the lobby, and we have a gift for you. We'd love just to meet you. But I today just want to show you that this is the real thing, that in community, life change happens really at its best. And so thank you guys for being up here. So really it's unique now, we're looking at you guys, and Jill's running almost all of our serving teams and doing an incredible job. Seriously, Tim, you're awesome, dude. I mean, he was over. He really is an amazing guy. He was over painting my house a couple nights ago, helping me out in a jam. But 2 to 3 years ago, it didn't look like that. Things weren't awesome. Things weren't going great. So would you guys just kind of share with us, just what did that look like?
Chaos. Oh, I'm on. It is on. But hello, hello. Testing.
That's okay. I think we got power here.
Oh,
Yep, we can just share.
here we are.
There you go.
Yeah. So 2003 was, or excuse me, 2011. I don't even know why I just said that. Was the start of a downfall in our marriage, and it was really chaotic, really rocky, and we pretty much lived separate lives. Actually, not pretty much. We did lead separate lives. So I was a part of another church at that time, and the only thing that I had was just to really dive headfirst into Bible studies and create friendships and circles, because it was a very lonely time.
But those friendships, like when we were talking, they were pretty much at surface, weren't they?
Yeah, there was none of the friends that I had around me at that time really knew the depth of what was happening inside the home.
They didn't know what you were going
Had
through.
no idea.
What about you, Tim?
So yeah, just echo what Jill was just saying. Our marriage and our life really was extremely volatile. We didn't get along. We argued a lot. We leaned on each other, I think, for our own happiness, and we were setting ourselves up for failure from the get-go. I worked 2 jobs. We had friends, but they were, like Jill said, kind of surface friends. We didn't have relationships, is what we were lacking. So we talked about sports, or we talked about the weather, or working around the house projects and stuff like that. But nothing. They were level 1 conversations.
Level 1 never went to level 2, and part of our community, Julio and Laura Fonseca, all of a sudden they kind of entered into the picture a little bit, and just tell us about a little bit, because you were kind of chatting with them and began to open up a little bit.
Yeah, so so this is 2014, and they started coming around a little bit, and we talk about going after the one often here in this church, and that's exactly what they were doing. We were their one. And so the trust was starting to build with myself and them. And then what happened was Julio really started pouring into Tim. And so Tim could trust Julio and start breaking walls down. That was a big moment for us. That was May of 14.
What was that like? What did he do?
So it was just, like I said, we were always so busy. So like our friendship started out with him just coming over and helping me with projects around the house.
Yeah.
Whether it was doing my roof or we were clearing out our backyard.
Yeah.
Like he was just there being a friend. And then from that, our relationship started building, where we were spending time together, having conversations, playing ping pong in his garage, and just having that one-on-one time and like letting the conversation go. And it wasn't like it was just a little bit after a little bit, and so he was just pouring into us.
Pouring in, and you guys started slowly opening up, and there was kind of in your story a somewhat of a turning point, not where everything got fixed, but a turning point. It took place in a garage, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
that was interesting. So Fonseca's invited us over to their garage, and for us to just hash it out. I mean, it was a space where it was for whatever was going to be said, it needed to happen. And I basically told Tim, I said, we either go to this garage and we let it all out and air out the dirty laundry, or divorce. But that's it. Those are the 2 options. And I'm very thankful he chose the garage.
He chose the garage. Good man.
Good man.
So Julio and Laura, they knew we had issues between Jill and I. Like after investing time and being like in relationship with us, you could see it. We weren't friends. We weren't on the same page. And they'll tell you also, like, going out on the limb. At one point, I think Julio was like, "Oh snap! Like, did we just cause a divorce?"
Yeah.
Like, it was that, like, getting
That
to the
messy.
nitty gritty and getting to the skeletons in the closet. And where in the past we kept all that to us, and that's all we knew. We were the hiker that you showed the picture of earlier that went hiking on his own, and we were alone on our marriage, and life was that boulder like pinning us down. And if we weren't yelling at ourselves and angry at ourselves for the position that we were in life, I was taking it out on Jill for my own unhappiness and being trapped where I was.
Yeah, man. And so they've pursued you guys, got into your mess, what it was.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
But then they I think by doing that, they encouraged you guys, share with me, you guys got connected to some groups, didn't you? You were part of a ladies
so
group.
that garage incident happened in May, and then that September, Tim was invited in to small group with Jay Richardson and a bunch of guys, and then I was invited with Natalie Richardson and all the wives of those guys. And from there, we really journeyed separately. And that was extremely hard for me because I wanted to be involved in Tim's journey. But one of the best pieces of advice that I got from Andrea and Ryan Coral, they said, don't ask questions. When Tim goes on Thursday nights and he comes home, welcome him home and give him hugs and kisses, but that's it. It's his journey, he needs time, and for a year, it was literally 12 months. And I never asked a question. And I trusted that Jesus and the men that Jesus put in this group was going to do the work. And it did. I had nothing to do with it.
What did you find out in your group that was interesting that you shared with us?
The authenticity from the men that I was with and in relationship with, it was unbelievably, it was like a weight off my shoulders, understanding that all these other men, they have the same problems that I have. They have the same issues with their wife that I had, and that I wasn't alone when I felt alone all the time, or I felt like I was the bad guy, or I thought that my wife was the bad one, or was the one at fault.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's why we were saying earlier, it's amazing when we acknowledge we all have a mess.
Yeah, that was another, there was two pieces of advice from the one from the Corals, and the second one was, I remember Julio saying to me, I know you want this badly for Tim, and I know you want your marriage to work, but I'm warning you, you better be ready to step in, because what's going to happen is you're blaming everything on Tim, and marriage is two people. And so be prepared, because you're going to find things that you're doing and that you're going to need transformation too. And that was eye-opening for me, because I thought that so many of our problems were all of Tim. And as we dug in deeper and deeper, I was realizing, wow, you know, I hold a lot of accountability in this as well.
Yeah.
That was kind of earth-shattering for me.
Yeah.
To like, wait, oh my gosh, hang on, I hold responsibility in this marriage. Really, because here's the thing, guys. When you argue, you think that you argue to be right.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I didn't want to be wrong. I say that very publicly.
Not many of us do. And now you've been journeying for a while. It's a couple of years later. So what is it looking like now, though? Now that we're kind of like on the other side of the coin, and by that, it doesn't mean everything's perfect, because that's not life.
No.
But it's a different approach and a different perspective that you guys are kind of seeing life through now. And in fact, you've led your own small groups.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do you want? Oh, okay. Yes, so our life looks completely different. One thing that I wanted to be really clear about in first service as well is it doesn't mean that our marriage is perfect. By no means is it. In fact, we were laughing this morning because we actually just got in a huge fight last night.
About talking about how they don't
talking about
fight
marriage
anymore, yeah.
It wasn't a huge fight, but we were laughing about it because that's exactly what the enemy wanted. He wanted Tim and I to be divided this morning because this scares the living crap out of evil. And it is a conscious decision every single day to, the forgiveness comes faster and easier, the grace, the mercy, the incredible it's a different love that I have for Tim. And it was not like that in the beginning. So our marriage looks different. I mean, of course we still argue, but we argue different, and we forgive much easier and faster. We love deeper.
Love deeper. What about you, man? What's your viewpoint?
My takeaway is, and it's one of the things that I'm thankful to share, because I really do feel that our story is a success story. And for me, I wish I would have known this 10 years ago. I wish somebody would have reached out to me 10 years ago. So I like being the success story, but the other side of it was that there was two people, Laura and Julio Fonseca, that listened to God, that stepped out and followed to be in relationship with other people. Mm-hmm. So either if you're in a wrong spot right now where we were, find somebody to reach out to. And if you're on top of things and you got that figured out, then be Laura and Julio reach out to somebody else, because there's people that need you, and that's all what I love about what we're learning about Jesus and working through Kensington and connecting and being in community with people.
I love that, man. I love that you guys are having willingness to share your story. I want to take a moment and just really honestly pray out of thankfulness for you two, what Jesus has done in your life, and even for our community, that God would continue, because I'm really convinced that he is doing this. So God, would you, I just want to thank you for what you've done in Jill and Tim's life, and how you used Julio and Laura, and God, how you want to reach into all of our lives, or how you want to even use some of us on mission to help others. And Jesus, may you start a work in this campus, in this place of restoration and love and unity and community, God, that can't be stopped, because what you start, no one can stop. I'm convinced of it. So may you bless. Thank you for their story in your name. Amen. So, hey, thank you guys so much for... As Hayden and Jordan prepare to help us respond and lead into worship today, I just hope more than anything what you take away is that Jesus could shine a light into your life, wherever it is right now, into your marriage, wherever it is right now, or maybe into your mission, and you think that I'm not of value and God wants to use you in a huge way. See, because we want this to be a community that's on fire, but it's got to be one that's modeled after what Jesus shared. It's got to be one where we go after one another. We don't leave the marginalized alone, that we're not afraid to step into the mess, that forgiveness is at the very crux and crucible of who we are, and that we're not forgotten of this, that we are loved. That you are so loved in a way by Jesus that you don't even know. Because some of you walked in here today, and if you got honest, you don't feel like you have value. And I want to be able to recant that on Jesus' behalf. You have incredible value. Mark shared it last week. You have never looked into the eyes of somebody that didn't matter deeply to Jesus. Jesus never looked into the eyes of humanity and thought they don't matter. In fact, the opposite. They mattered to him more than anything. He loved his community. So as we respond and we worship, I pray this, that God could shine a light into your heart, into your life, that he would illuminate a new way to do community.
I want to invite you guys to go ahead and stand as we close.
Waking up to another life, no more sorrow, no more night. You're the light, let it shine now, let it shine now. Burning bright, 'cause we're not ashamed. Got a world to illuminate. You're the light, let it shine now, let it shine now. Promise. You're the light, let it shine now, let it shine. See, sing. You're the light, let it shine now, let it shine now. And nothing can stand against us. Our praise will break the darkness, and we declare your kingdom's here. Because our God is for us, we're living in the promise, and we declare your kingdom's here. Yeah. Sing, shine a light, 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 shine a light. Here we go. We got a light and we're gonna shine. Jesus, let your name be glorified. We got a light and we're gonna shine. Forever let your name be glorified. We got a light and we're gonna shine. Jesus, let your name be glorified. We got a light and we're gonna shine. Forever let your name be glorified.
God, we do just thank you so much that we can be your light. We thank you for the opportunity that we have to have community together and just to love you. We thank you for all of this. In your son's name, amen.
Created from dust, you came and you lived among us. You took on a frame, you walked in our pain, and now you're taking us higher. And you stepped into time. You laid down your life to save us. You took all our shame on the cross it was laid, and now you're taking us higher. We go from glory to glory to glory. We'll never be the same. We'll never be the same. 'Cause we go from glory to glory to glory. We're forever changed. We're forever changed. You call me a friend and brought into your endless kingdom. By the blood I was made, no longer a slave. And now you're taking us higher. We go from glory to glory to glory. We'll never be the same. We'll never be the same. 'Cause we go from glory to glory to glory. We're forever changed. We're forever changed. the victor has won, and heaven has come, and now you're taking us high.
You guys sound amazing. I love being a community with you guys. You know that? I mean that. Hey, don't forget about next week after the 10:30 service. We're going to have inflatables, hanging out, music, food, bring a few bucks. Yeah, I think hot dogs, cotton candy, who knows? So it's going to be unbelievable. But hey, how you liking the new dig so far? Week 1, you like it? Me too, man. Hey, we love you guys. Cannot wait to see you next week. And seriously, if we can ever be of help at all, prayer, you have needs, anything, see us here. See us at the starting point. So, but hey, have a wonderful week, okay? We'll see you next weekend.